Welcome back to the Mind of Watercolor, all you Minder patrons out there. Continuing with my bird series. Today we're going to talk a little bit about volume. And this is just a very important aspect of any drawing, but especially birds. Because they are such round shapes. And I think probably one of the biggest mistakes I see with beginners who are trying to draw birds is they make them look like cardboard cutouts. So let's take a side view. Okay, remember our D, and you can arch that back a little bit. But the tail is in line with the spine, and we have our head here. And what happens is, in fact, I'm going to get my watercolor. This is not watercolor paper, but we're going to just do a little bit of a shade. Is just go in here and they shade the edge, of everything. Okay, that's not the way to do a bird. A bird is a round, spherical object. Okay. Or even the feathers, they have some dimension depending on whether you see the underside or not. You need to remember these are forms with volume, and you look for all those clues. So let's talk a bit about where you'll find those clues. I'm going to do this more of a 3/4 bird. One of the things I do is I kind of draw through as if he's invisible, put in a spine, and the tail is always in line with that spine. And the wings come up, and if you're looking at a 3/4 view, you're going to see a little more of the breast. Remember that. And the wing tips, when the wing is folded, to go up over the back above the tail. And you can't really see, part of the leg is buried, but a little bit of the leg cuff come out on a bird. Sometimes it'll come straight down, but then it'll bend. That's like their elbow. And come out. All right, so you got your basic bird form. So this is where you do need to study reference, and there you'll notice layers of feathers. And as feathers are delineated, they'll follow the form of the wing this way. And then as another layer of feathers comes, don't just make it, it's tempting to just make a straight line. And sometimes it'll look that way, but mostly it'll show a gentle curve. Why? Because you've got that volume to the wing. Okay? That curve, that wing is curved. It's not flat. It's not a flat piece of paper. So as there's curve here, feathers will follow that curve. And because it's curved, shadow will fall underneath it. And back here, as you usually have a bit of like a rump, and then that goes into the main body. This wing comes away from the body, so it casts a shadow. So you're seeing more dimension there. And because this tail's coming off the back of the body, you're seeing shadow there. And it gets darker, so that tucks under and gives you, a shadow there. And then this is usually the darkest, it's not the darkest part of the bird in color, because usually breasts are very light and white, but it's the most shadowed part. This actually will be darker here because the feathers on most birds on the wing are darker. But this is one of the most shaded areas of the bird is the rump up to the breast. Okay. But now here's a clue that you really should look for. Rather than shade right to the edge, spheres have a thing, and I'm going to highlight this separately. Let's draw the big egg. Let's forget about the details of a bird for a minute and look at him as a whole. When you get a sphere and it's round, okay, and it's an egg, but it's still spherical or round in shape, you get light cast from one side, but you will also get smaller amounts of reflected light. And if you really want to make that look round, the most shadowed part is going to be right in here. Sometimes you have to take and look at photo reference very carefully to see it. Now it may be shady here too, but the darkest part of the shadow is going to be, and the highlight of course is going to be right here. Let me get a little bit of watercolor on that and see. So darkest, light graduating up to the highlight. Some shade down here, but darkest right in there. Okay. Let's put the bottom of the wing. You start shading like that, as if a form is round, and you're going to improve the dimensionality, the form, the 3D elements of your drawings in general, but especially birds. You're going to improve it threefold, tenfold. It's just going to look more real. But there's just this little, you really have to look for it. And sometimes you can exaggerate and add it, even if you don't see it. In other words, highlight graduating down to shadow, not quite to the edge. Then as the form turns and goes under, a little bit of reflected light here. It's still in shadow, but it's a little bit of reflected light. It's a little bit lighter than it is right here. That's how you make a form look round. And wherever possible, wherever you see shading, follow contour. Make sure you show that. So shading underneath, that's a little dark, for instance, is going to follow the head, or the roundness of the head. Again, if I want to shade this, I'm going to put most of my heaviest part of the shadow here, and it's going to get lighter as it gets out towards the edge. Now, I know naturally you have to factor in bird color, because this part of the bird is so much lighter. But I hope you understand what I'm saying. And what it is just that little bit of reflected light right here that just makes this part just ever so much lighter than this part. Now, I say darkest, I should say most shadowed, because I'm not accounting for color. Color also makes things dark. And then secondly, just reiterating, watch for cast shadows. A cast shadow is where light hits something and it casts a shadow on something when it's separated. And you usually get a bit of a cast shadow here. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of a cast shadow here. Sometimes you'll get a little bit of a cast shadow here. depending on which way the light is hitting the leg. Those are the clues you can start looking for. Thanks, everybody. I hope that was a help. Let me know if you have questions.